A quiet beginning. What if everything we know about history is only a small part of a much larger story? A story that stretches far beyond the limits of recorded time, far beyond the civilizations we have studied, far beyond what we believe to be the beginning. As you listen, allow your mind to slow down. There is no rush, no need to hold on to every detail. Just follow the ideas as they gently unfold. Because tonight, we are not searching for answers. We are simply exploring a possibility. What if we are not the first? As you listen, allow your mind to slow down. There is no rush, no need to hold on to every detail. Just follow the ideas as they gently unfold. Because tonight, we are not searching for answers. We are simply exploring a possibility. What if we are not the first? The illusion of the beginning. We are often told that civilization began around 5,000 years ago, with the rise of ancient societies, cities forming, writing emerging, knowledge expanding. But what if this is not the true beginning? What if it is only the beginning of what survived? Because history is not a complete record, it is a fragment, a collection of pieces that managed to remain while countless others were lost. Entire civilizations may have existed, thrived, and disappeared without leaving behind clear evidence. And if that is true, then the past is not fully known. It is partially remembered. The Earth before memory. Imagine the Earth tens of thousands of years ago, before the cities we know, before the empires we study. The landscape was different. The climate was shifting. Massive ice sheets covered large parts of the planet. Sea levels were lower, and vast regions of land existed where oceans now rest. What might have existed in those places? What structures? What knowledge? What civilizations? Now hidden beneath the sea. Because when the ice melted, the world changed, and with it, anything built before that moment may have disappeared. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more. The rising waters. At the end of the last ice age, something dramatic happened. The ice began to melt, and the oceans rose. Slowly at first, then rapidly. Coastlines were swallowed, land disappeared beneath water. Entire regions were lost. If there were civilizations living near those ancient shores, their cities would now be gone, hidden beneath thousands of years of ocean. And unlike ruins on land, underwater structures are difficult to find, difficult to study, and often left unexplored. So the question becomes, how much of our past is hidden beneath the waves? The mystery of ancient structures. There are places in the world that challenge our understanding of history, structures that seem older, more complex, more advanced than expected, sites that do not fit easily into the timeline we've created, massive stone constructions built with precision, using techniques that are still debated today. How did they achieve such accuracy, such scale, such durability? Were these truly the works of early civilizations, or the remnants of something older, something we do not yet fully understand? The cycle of rise and fall. History shows us a pattern. Civilizations rise, they grow, they reach their peak, and eventually they fall. This cycle repeats again and again. But what if this pattern extends further back, beyond recorded history? What if civilizations existed long before ours, followed the same path, and disappeared, leaving behind only fragments, fragments we now interpret without knowing their true origin. Knowledge lost to time. Knowledge is fragile. It does not survive on its own. It must be preserved, shared, passed down. But if a civilization collapses, its knowledge often disappears with it. Libraries are destroyed. Languages are forgotten. Ideas fade. And over time, even the memory of that knowledge vanishes. So what if advanced understanding once existed, but was lost? Not because it was impossible, but because it was not preserved. The stars remain. There is one thing that has never changed: the sky. For thousands of years, humans have looked up at the same stars, the same constellations, the same patterns. Ancient structures around the world often align with the stars, with incredible precision. This suggests something important. Those who built them were not only observing the sky, they understood it. But how far back does that understanding go? Was it developed gradually or inherited from something older? The missing pieces. When we study history, we rely on evidence, artifacts, structures, written records. But what happens when those things are missing? We fill the gaps with theories, with assumptions, with simplified explanations. But missing evidence does not mean something never existed. It only means we have not found it yet. The quiet possibility. And so we arrive at a quiet possibility that humanity's story is not a straight line, but a cycle. That civilizations may have come before us, reached heights we do not fully understand, and then disappeared, leaving behind only whispers, hidden in stone, buried beneath earth, or lost beneath the sea. And perhaps the greatest mystery is not what we know, but what we have forgotten.
Beneath the surface of the oceans, there is a silence, a vast, endless quiet that hides more than we can see. The oceans cover most of our planet, and yet we have explored only a small fraction of them. What lies below remains largely unknown. There are places where shapes appear, unnatural formations, stone-like structures, patterns that resemble something built rather than formed. And in that quiet darkness, it becomes possible to imagine that entire worlds once existed there. Cities, paths, monuments, now resting in stillness far below the waves. A world before the ice melted. Long before our current coastlines existed, the world looked very different. During the Ice Age, vast amounts of water were locked in glaciers. Sea levels were lower. Land stretched farther, connecting regions that are now separated by oceans. If civilizations existed during that time, they would have lived on lands that no longer exist above water. And when the ice melted, those lands were slowly submerged, not destroyed in a single moment, but gradually, over generations, until they were gone, leaving behind no clear trace above the surface. The fragility of civilization. It is easy to believe that civilization is permanent, that once something is built, it will remain. But history shows something different. Even the greatest empires eventually fall. Structures collapse, nature takes over, time erases, and without constant preservation, even the most advanced knowledge can disappear. Not because it was weak, but because it was vulnerable. Nature reclaims everything. Given enough time, nature reclaims everything. Cities become forests, roads become invisible, stone becomes dust. What once felt permanent becomes temporary, And after thousands of years, even the largest civilizations can leave behind almost nothing, just subtle traces that are easy to overlook. The puzzle of megaliths. There are stones in this world that raise quiet questions. Massive blocks weighing hundreds of tons, placed with precision, moved in ways that are still debated today. Some say it was simple tools, time and effort. Others wonder if there was knowledge that we no longer understand. Not necessarily technology as we know it, but methods, approaches, ideas that have been forgotten. Knowledge that feels out of place. Sometimes when we look at ancient achievements, they seem almost out of place, too precise, too advanced, too aligned, as if they belong to a different stage of development. But perhaps that feeling comes from something else, not that they are ahead of their time, but that they come from a time we do not fully see. The pattern of forgetting. Humanity has a pattern. We discover, we build, we understand, and then, sometimes, we forget. Knowledge fades, skills are lost, understanding becomes myth, and what was once clear becomes mysterious. This has happened many times, even within recorded history. So what happens over tens of thousands of years? Ancient maps and memory. There are ancient maps that show surprising detail, coastlines that seem accurate, regions that appear mapped before they were officially explored. Some suggest these maps may have been copied from older sources, sources that no longer exist. If that is true, then the knowledge they contain is not original, but inherited, a memory of something older. The depth of time. Time is difficult to imagine. On the scale of human history, thousands of years already feel distant. But what about tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands? Civilizations could rise and disappear multiple times within those spans, leaving behind only fragments that survive by chance. And when we look back, we may only be seeing the most recent layer, a gentle possibility. So we return to the original question. What if we are not the first to build, not the first to understand, not the first to reach a certain level of awareness, but simply the most recent, a continuation of something that has happened before, a new chapter in a much older story.
A gentle possibility. So we return to the original question. What if we are not the first? Not the first to build, not the first to understand, not the first to reach a certain level of awareness, but simply the most recent. A continuation of something that has happened before, a new chapter in a much older story. The memory of catastrophe. Many ancient traditions speak of a great flood, a moment when the world changed, water rising, land disappearing, civilizations ending. These stories exist across continents, in cultures that had no contact, and yet they describe something similar. It is possible that these stories are not just myths, but distant memories, passed down, simplified over time. Memories of real events that reshaped the world. Foundations we do not question. When we look at ancient structures, we often focus on what is visible, the walls, the stones, the carvings, but rarely do we ask what lies beneath. What foundations support them? Could there be layers, older than what we see? Structures built upon structures, civilizations built upon the remains of others. If so, then history is not a single layer, but many, stacked across time. Time as a cycle. We often think of time as a straight line, a beginning, a middle, an end. But many ancient cultures saw time differently, as a cycle, a repeating pattern of creation, growth, decline, and renewal. If time moves in cycles, then civilization may as well. Rising, falling, and rising again. Each time, starting from what remains, starting over. Imagine a world where knowledge is suddenly lost. No written language, no technology, no preserved history, only survivors. Over time, they rebuild, but not from where they left off, from what they remember, from what they can rediscover. And so, progress begins again, slowly, naturally, without awareness of what came before.
The space between answers. There is a space between what we know and what we do not know. A quiet space where certainty fades and possibility begins. It is in this space that questions become more important than answers, because answers can close a door, but questions leave it open. And sometimes it is better to leave the door open. The depth we cannot see. When you look at the ocean, you see only the surface, calm or moving, reflecting the sky above. But beneath that surface, there is depth, layers of darkness, silence, pressure. And within that depth, things exist that we rarely think about. History may be the same. What we see is only the surface. Traces without context. Across the world, there are traces, fragments, objects, structures. But without full context, they are difficult to understand. A single piece cannot tell the whole story. And when many pieces are missing, the story becomes unclear. So we do the best we can. We reconstruct. We interpret. We imagine. But there is always a possibility that something important is still missing. The quiet repetition. There is a quiet rhythm to everything. Day becomes night. Night becomes day. Seasons change and return. Patterns repeat, again and again. And perhaps civilization follows a similar rhythm. Not identical, but familiar. Rising, falling, returning, in ways that are not always obvious. A long continuity. Instead of seeing humanity as a single continuous rise, what if it is a series of beginnings, each one building on what remains of the previous, sometimes aware, sometimes not. A long continuity with pauses, with gaps, with forgotten chapters, but still connected. The quiet present moment. Right now, in this moment, we exist at the edge of what we understand, looking back, trying to see further, but also creating the future. A future that one day may be studied, interpreted, and perhaps misunderstood,
just as we interpret the past today. What will remain? If thousands of years pass, what will remain of us? What traces will survive? Will our structures endure? Will our knowledge be understood? Or will it become fragments, pieces without context, questions without answers, just like the past we study now? The gentle realization. And in this thought, there is something calming, that we are part of something much larger, a story that did not begin with us and will not end with us, a continuous unfolding where each generation adds something and loses something. The unfinished story. The story of Earth is not complete. It is still being written, with every moment, every discovery, every question. And perhaps some of its chapters have been lost, not forever, but waiting to be found again. A final thought before rest. So as the mind begins to slow and the thoughts become quieter, return once more to the question, not to answer it, but simply to feel it. What if we are not the first civilization on Earth? Let the question remain, unresolved, open, calm.
There is something almost impossible about imagining deep time. Not years, not centuries, but vast stretches of existence, so long that entire civilizations could rise and disappear without leaving a clear trace. And yet, the Earth would remain unchanged, quiet, patient, holding its secrets without urgency. The stillness that remains. After every great change, there is stillness. After the rise and the fall, after the movement and the noise, there is always a return to quiet. Waves settle, wind softens, dust rests, and in that stillness, everything becomes calm again, as if nothing had happened. The stillness that remains. After every great change, there is stillness. After the rise and the fall, after the movement and the noise, there is always a return to quiet. Waves settle, wind softens, dust rests, and in that stillness, everything becomes calm again, as if nothing had happened. Memory without words. Not all memory exists in words. Some memory exists in feeling, in intuition, in a quiet sense that something is familiar, even when we cannot explain why. It is possible that fragments of the past exist in this way, not as clear knowledge, but as subtle impressions, carried forward without language. A planet of layers. The Earth is not just a surface, it is layers. Layers of time, layers of history, layers of change. Beneath the ground, there are traces, buried, compressed, hidden. Each layer a quiet record of what came before. But not all layers are easy to read. The unknown is not empty. When we say something is unknown, it does not mean it is empty. It simply means we have not seen it yet. There may be stories, structures, evidence, waiting in places we have not explored, or in forms we have not recognized. The unknown is not absence, it is potential.
the gentle passing of time. Time does not rush. It moves gently, steadily, without pause. Moments become memories. Memories fade, and what once felt important becomes distant, then silent, and eventually almost invisible, but never completely gone. A quiet acceptance. Perhaps it is not necessary to know everything. Not every mystery needs a final answer. Some questions can simply exist, bringing curiosity without pressure, wonder without conclusion. And in that, there is a kind of peace, drifting toward rest. As thoughts begin to slow and the mind becomes quieter, there is no need to hold on to every idea. Let them pass gently, like clouds moving across the sky, appearing and then fading, leaving behind only calm, the edge of sleep. Now the question remains, softly in the background. What if we are not the first civilization on Earth? Not as something to solve, but as something to drift with, as the mind begins to rest, and the world becomes quieter, and everything slows.
The past can feel very far away, not just in time, but in understanding, as if it exists behind a soft veil, something we can sense but never fully reach. And the further back we go, the quieter it becomes, until it is no longer clear where memory ends and imagination begins. Imagine a place without sound, no voices, no movement, only stillness. That is what remains after time has passed over everything. A quiet that holds what once was, but does not reveal it easily. There comes a moment when thinking begins to slow, not forced, not controlled, just naturally, like waves settling after a long movement. And in that moment, there is space, a quiet space between thoughts where nothing needs to happen. The soft dissolving of ideas. Ideas that once felt clear begin to soften. Edges fade, details disappear, and what remains is only a gentle impression, a feeling rather than a thought. And even that feeling begins to drift away. The rhythm of stillness. Even in stillness, there is a rhythm, a slow, almost invisible movement, breath, awareness, presence, all moving together in a quiet harmony. Nothing separate, nothing forced, just existing. The distant world. The world outside begins to feel distant, less important, less defined, as if it is slowly moving further away, not gone, just quiet. The fading of questions. Questions that once felt important begin to lose their shape. They no longer demand answers. They no longer pull attention. They simply exist. And then, slowly, they fade. Drifting without awareness. There is a point where drifting happens without noticing, where awareness softens, and the mind no longer follows words clearly, just fragments,
soft echoes that pass gently without staying. The gentle darkness. Darkness here is not empty. It is calm, comforting, like a quiet space that holds everything, without pressure, without expectation, just stillness. The last movement. Thought becomes slower, then softer, then almost still. And in that stillness, there is no need for anything more. Rest. Now, everything can rest. No more following, no more thinking. Just quiet, just calm, just stillness. A quiet return. And now, there is nothing more to follow. No more ideas to hold on to. No more questions to explore. Only a quiet space that remains. A calm that does not need words. A stillness that has always been here. If there were civilizations before us, their time has already passed, just as this moment will gently pass, becoming memory, and then something softer than memory. The earth continues quietly, the stars remain unchanged, and everything moves in its own time, without effort, without urgency. There is nothing you need to do now, nothing to understand, nothing to remember. Just rest. Let the thoughts fade. Let the images dissolve. Let everything become lighter, quieter, softer. And if the question returns, what if we are not the first? Let it pass gently like a distant echo, without needing an answer, because now there is only this moment, slow, calm, still. And as everything becomes quieter, even these words begin to fade, slower, softer, further away, until there is only silence and rest. And in that quiet, you can simply drift.